A day in ancient Egypt, told for sleep. A calm journey through one ordinary day in New Kingdom, Egypt, near Thebes. Section 1. Before the sun returns. Tonight we are going to travel back more than 3,000 years to a place where the desert meets a great river and where nearly every part of life follows the patient rhythm of water, wind, and sun. We are going to ancient Egypt, to the broad valley of the Nile during the time historians will one day call the New Kingdom. The city of Thebes lies nearby, though the people who live here know it by other names. Across the river, low cliffs rise above the western bank. Beyond them stretches the desert, pale and silent beneath the stars. On the eastern side, where the sun will soon return, houses, gardens, workshops, quays, and temple walls wait in darkness. There is no need to remember a date, a ruler, or the name of every god. Nothing will be asked of you. You are only here to experience one ordinary day, from the cool stillness before dawn until the moment the lamps are lowered and the household falls asleep. For now, the sun is still below the horizon. You are lying on a woven mat on the flat roof of a mud brick house. During the warm months, families often sleep above their rooms where the night wind can move freely. A low parapet surrounds the roof. Beside you are folded blankets, a small wooden headrest, a clay water jar, and a basket covered with linen. The air is cooler than you expected. It carries the faint scent of river mud, dry reeds, wood smoke, and damp earth from the watered gardens. A breeze arrives from the north and passes over your face. Far below, somewhere in a courtyard, a goat shifts against its tether. A dog gives one quiet bark and then settles again. Above you, the sky is full of stars. Without electric light, darkness is deeper, yet it is not empty. The constellations seem close enough to touch. The bright river of the Milky Way crosses the heavens like pale dust. To the people sleeping around you, the sky is not merely distant. It is alive with order, story, and promise. A narrow strip of grey appears in the east. Birds begin before people do. First comes the call of a water bird from the riverbank. Then another answers farther away. You hear wings passing overhead, quick and soft. In the reeds, small creatures stir among stems that whisper against one another. From a neighbouring roof comes the sound of someone waking. Linen rustles, sandals scrape lightly over plaster. A woman speaks in a low voice to a child who is reluctant to rise. The household beneath you is beginning its day. You sit up, slowly. The roof surface is smooth but uneven beneath your hand. It was made from beams, reeds, and packed mud, repaired whenever cracks appear. The house itself is simple, practical, and cool within its thick walls. It will protect the family from the heat later, just as the roof has offered air during the night. The eastern sky brightens from grey to pearl. For one final moment you remain where you are, wrapped in the calm between darkness and day. The Nile moves beyond the houses, unseen but always present. It has flowed through the night, carrying water north toward the sea, as it has done for countless generations. Take one slow breath, then another. The first light reaches the edge of the roof, and you begin your day in ancient Egypt. Section 2. The house awakens. A short stairway leads from the roof into the rooms below. You descend carefully, placing one hand against the wall. The plaster is cool beneath your fingers. At the foot of the stairs, a narrow doorway opens into the main room of the house. The light is still dim. A small oil lamp burns in a wall niche, its flame no larger than a leaf. The room contains only what the family needs: low stools, woven baskets, pottery jars, folded linen, a wooden chest, grinding stones, and sleeping mats now being rolled and tied. The walls are made from sun-dried mud brick and covered with pale plaster. Near the doorway, someone has painted a simple border in red and blue. The colours are not grand, but they brighten the room when sunlight enters. A carved figure of Bess, the protective household god, with a broad face and lion-like features, stands on a small shelf. Nearby is an image associated with Taweret, guardian of mothers and children. These figures belong to daily life. They watch over birth, sleep, illness, food, and the quiet fears that never appear in royal inscriptions. Great temples may dominate the skyline, but in ordinary homes protection is sought through small objects, spoken prayers, gestures, and habits repeated from one generation to the next. In the courtyard, a woman kneels beside a shallow basin. She pours water from a jar over her hands and face. Another member of the household brings fresh water from a larger vessel and sets it beside the cooking area. The water was drawn earlier from a neighborhood well or carried from a channel connected to the river. You wash as the others do, the water is cool and a little gritty from the clay jar. You rub your skin with a cloth, then dry your hands in the morning air. Cleanliness matters in this warm climate. Water, oils, combs, and simple cosmetics are part of ordinary care, not only luxury. A child emerges from a side room with sleep still in his eyes. His head is mostly shaved, leaving a lock of hair at one side. He carries a small wooden toy shaped like a bird. Another child follows, already alert, and asks whether there will be dates with breakfast. The adults smile but offer no promise. Near the back wall, yesterday's embers are coaxed back to life. A woman adds dry reeds, bits of wood and chaff. She bends close and blows gently. For a moment, there is only smoke. Then a small orange glow appears beneath the ash. The fire catches and the room begins to smell of warm clay and burning straw. The front door opens. Morning enters all at once. Pale light, bird calls, the soft murmur of neighbors, and the sound of a broom brushing dust from a nearby threshold. Outside, another household is emptying a jar, fastening sandals, and preparing tools for the day. The father of the house ties a clean linen kilt around his waist. His work will take him toward the river and the storehouses. He checks the cord on a small bag containing bread, onions, and perhaps a piece of dried fish. The mother folds a length of linen and places it in a basket. Part of her day will be spent at home, part exchanging goods with neighbors, and part helping with work that rarely fits into a single title. Everyone has something to do, yet the pace is not hurried. The sun is only beginning to rise. The hardest heat is still many hours away. Tasks are best started early when the shadows are long and the air retains the memory of night. You step into the courtyard. Above the eastern wall, the sky has turned soft gold. Section 3. Bread, beer, and morning light. Breakfast begins with bread. The loaves are small, dense, and slightly rough. Some were baked yesterday in clay molds or against the hot wall of an oven. Others may be fresh from a neighborhood bakery. The grain has been ground by hand, and tiny traces of stone can sometimes remain in the flour. Yet to the household, bread is familiar, reliable, and necessary. A round loaf is broken and shared. You receive a piece, still faintly warm from being placed near the rekindled fire. Its crust is firm, while the inside is softer and carries the earthy taste of emmer wheat. Beside it are green onions, a few dates, and a small dish of lentils flavored with salt and herbs. There is also beer, though it is unlike the clear drink known in later ages. Egyptian beer is often cloudy, nourishing, and mild enough to be part of everyday meals. It may be strained before drinking, and its flavor can be sour, grainy, or slightly sweet. A clay cup is placed in your hands. You take a small drink. It tastes of fermented grain and cool pottery. The cup has been stored in a shaded corner, and the liquid offers a little relief even before the day becomes hot. Around you, the household eats with few utensils. Bread is torn, food is lifted by hand, children reach for dates and are reminded to leave some for later. A small dog waits near the doorway, watching every movement with patient hope. Sunlight enters the courtyard and touches the upper wall. The color of the mud brick changes from grey-brown to warm ochre. Dust suspended in the air becomes visible. A beetle crosses the packed earth floor, pauses beside a reed basket, and disappears beneath it. From outside comes the rhythmic knock of a wooden pestle. Someone nearby is pounding grain. Another neighbor calls to a relative across the lane. A donkey complains in a long, theatrical voice, and several people laugh. The morning meal is not silent, but its sounds are gentle and ordinary. You notice the variety of pottery around the courtyard. Large jars hold water and grain. Smaller vessels contain oil, salt, dried herbs, or cosmetics. Some are plain, their surfaces marked by fingerprints left during shaping. Others carry painted bands or simple patterns. Pottery is everywhere because it is useful, inexpensive, and well suited to a world where almost everything must be stored, carried, poured, measured, or protected from insects. A woman pours a little water into a shallow bowl and adds crushed herbs. She uses the mixture to wipe the youngest child's face. Then she smooths a touch of oil over the child's skin, protecting it from dryness and sun. The adults prepare to leave. A basket is covered with cloth. Tools are checked. The household shrine receives a small gesture of respect. No grand ceremony is required. A few quiet words are enough. Outside, the lane is now bright. The shadows still stretch across the ground, but the upper walls glow. People emerge from doorways carrying baskets, staffs, ropes, jars and bundles. Some will walk toward fields, others will cross canals, enter workshops, visit the market, or report for service at estates and temples. You finish the last piece of bread and brush a few crumbs from your hands. The dog finally receives a corner of crust. Then you follow the family into the morning. Section 4. A lane of mud brick houses. The lane is narrow enough that neighbors can speak from one doorway to another without raising their voices. Houses stand close together, their flat roofs forming a second world above the street. Reed mats provide shade. Clay jars rest near parapets. A woman on one roof shakes dust from a piece of linen and spreads it in the sun. Most buildings are made from mud brick, formed from Nile silt mixed with straw and dried in the open air. The material is abundant and remarkably practical. Thick walls keep interiors cooler during the day and warmer during the rare cold nights. When rain or time damages the surface, new mud plaster can be applied. The houses will not survive thousands of years as completely as stone temples, yet they hold nearly all of ordinary life. You walk past a doorway where a carpenter is beginning work. He sits on a low stool with a piece of wood braced before him. His tools are simple: adzes, chisels, saws, drills, smoothing stones, and cords for measuring. The wood itself is valuable. Good timber does not grow everywhere in Egypt, so some kinds arrive by trade from distant lands. Farther along, a woman spins flax fibre into thread. The spindle turns between her fingers, dropping and twisting. Beside her, a basket holds pale fibres that will become linen. Egyptian clothing appears simple, but the making of fine cloth demands patience. Planting, harvesting, retting, combing, spinning, weaving, washing, and sometimes pleating. A young boy carries a bundle of reeds longer than he is tall. He leans forward to balance the weight and nearly brushes a wall as he passes. The reeds may become baskets, mats, roofing, cord, pens, or fuel. Very little is wasted in a landscape where each material has many uses. The lane opens briefly into a small square. A sycamore fig tree grows beside a basin, its branches spreading a pool of shade. Several people pause here before continuing toward the river. A potter's donkey waits beneath the tree, loaded with empty baskets. Flies circle lazily around its ears. Near the basin, a scribe sits on a low bench making a list. His writing board rests across his knees. A palette holds black and red pigment, and thin reed pens are tucked beneath one hand. He may be recording deliveries, workers, grain, or tools. Writing gives shape to the obligations of a complex society. It counts what enters and what leaves. It preserves orders. It records names that would otherwise disappear. Most people cannot read his signs, but they understand the authority of the list. He dips his pen, draws several quick marks, then speaks to a man holding a basket of onions. The man answers. The scribe adds another line. You continue through the square. At the edge of the settlement, the view widens. Green fields stretch toward the river, divided by low ridges and irrigation channels. Date palms rise above garden walls. Beyond them, the Nile reflects the strengthening sky. The contrast is extraordinary. Behind you lies mud brick, dust, and shaded rooms. Ahead is a ribbon of cultivated green. Beyond that green begins the desert, dry and open, reaching toward cliffs that glow pale rose in the morning sun. Egypt is shaped by these borders, river, field, and desert, each beginning where the other ends. A breeze moves across the crops. You leave the houses behind and walk toward the water. Section 5, along the irrigation channel. A narrow path follows an irrigation channel toward the fields. Water moves slowly between banks of dark soil. Its surface carries bits of straw and the reflection of tall reeds. Small frogs rest at the edge until your shadow approaches, then vanish with quiet splashes. The channel is part of a larger system that guides the Nile's gift across the land. Each year, the river rises and spreads water and fertile silt over the valley. The exact pattern changes from place to place and from year to year. Too little water brings anxiety. Too much can damage homes and boundaries. A good rise renews the soil and makes another season possible. People work with this cycle rather than controlling it completely. Low embankments divide fields into basins. Gates and cuts in the earth direct water where it is needed. Farmers watch levels, repair banks, clear channels, and carry water to higher ground. Later devices such as the shadoof will become common, but here much irrigation still depends on gravity, labour, baskets, jars, and careful timing. A man stands calf-deep beside the channel, pressing mud into a weak part of the bank. Another passes him bundles of reeds. Their work is unhurried but exact. If the gap widens, water meant for one plot will escape into another. Nearby, cattle move through a field under the guidance of a young herder. Their hooves press into softened ground. White egrets follow behind, searching for insects. The cattle are strong, slow animals with long horns, valued for labor, milk, hides, and status. They appear in temple offerings and estate accounts, but here they are simply part of the morning landscape. You hear the beat of grain being threshed farther away. In another season, teams of animals may walk over cut stalks while workers turn the grain. Today, some fields hold low green growth, while others have been prepared for planting. Garden plots contain onions, lettuce, cucumbers, beans, and herbs. A farmer offers you a fresh cucumber from a basket. It is small, cool, and crisp. You thank him and continue walking while you eat. Its clean taste belongs perfectly to the morning. The path narrows between flax plants. Their delicate stems move in the breeze, and tiny blue flowers catch the light. From these modest plants will come linen worn by labourers, officials, priests and kings. The finest cloth may become nearly transparent. Coarser linen will wrap tools, cover bread, shade doorways, and serve 100 ordinary purposes. You pause beside a tamarisk tree. From here, you can see the entire valley in layers. Closest are the dark banks of the channel, then fields and gardens, then the shining river. On the far side, the western cliffs rise above the plain, their dry faces already bright beneath the sun. Somewhere beyond those cliffs, craftsmen are cutting and painting chambers for the dead. Yet even that work is part of daily life, carried out by families who eat breakfast, complain about supplies, borrow tools, and return home tired at the end of the day. The cucumber is finished. You place the stem beside the path where it will return to the earth. Ahead, the channel joins a broader waterway, and boats wait among the reeds. Section 6, a small boat on the Nile. The boat is made from wooden planks fastened carefully together. It is not large enough for heavy cargo, but it can carry several passengers and baskets across the river. A short mast supports a furled sail. For now, the boatman uses a pole to move away from the muddy bank. You step aboard and sit on a low crossbeam. The boat rocks once, then steadies. Water surrounds you with a soft, continuous sound. It taps against the hull, slips around the steering oar, and curls away in widening patterns. Near the shore, reeds stand taller than a person. Their green stems sway, while seed heads whisper overhead. The Nile flows north toward the distant Mediterranean. The prevailing wind often comes from the north, making travel along the river unusually balanced. Boats can drift with the current toward Lower Egypt, or raise their sails and use the wind to travel south toward Upper Egypt. This morning, the breeze is light. The boatman lets the current carry you at an angle while he guides the bow. A fisherman nearby checks a woven trap. Another casts a net in a broad silver arc. The weighted edge touches the water almost all at once, creating a circle of small splashes. He waits, then begins drawing the net in hand over hand. Birds gather along a sandbank. Geese, ducks, ibises, and long-legged waders. Some are hunted for food, others are raised near homes. Their calls rise and overlap, then fade as your boat moves into deeper water. The river is busy without feeling crowded. A cargo vessel passes downstream carrying tall jars secured in rows. Its square sail is lowered and several men use long steering oars. Another boat, smaller and quicker, heads south with a bright sail, filled by the northern wind. On its deck, a merchant shelters beneath a reed canopy, while two assistants watch the shoreline. The surface of the Nile reflects the sky, but not like a perfect mirror. It is broken constantly by wind, fish, oars, birds, and current. Blue, gold, and brown mingle together. You trail one hand close to the water without touching it. The boatman hums beneath his breath. It is not a formal song, only a repeated phrase shaped by work. Each time he changes the pole, the tune pauses. Each time the boat glides freely, it returns. Halfway across, the view of the temples becomes clearer. Massive pylons rise above the eastern bank. Flagpoles stand before gateways, and high walls enclose courtyards, halls, storerooms, gardens, and sacred rooms. Their stone surfaces catch the morning sun and appear almost white from a distance. Closer to the water are quays, warehouses, workshops, and clusters of houses. People move along the bank, carrying jars and baskets. Donkeys wait beside bundles of goods. Sailcloth snaps once in the breeze. The boat approaches a landing place. The boatman lowers the pole, feels for the riverbed, and slows the hull. A boy on shore catches a rope and loops it around a wooden post. The boat touches the bank with a quiet wooden knock. You step onto the quay. Behind you, the Nile continues north, broad, calm and bright beneath the morning sun. Section 7. The Riverside Quay. The quay is built from packed earth, timber and sections of stone. Its surface is damp near the water and dusty farther inland. Workers move between boats and storehouses, carrying goods in baskets, slings, jars and wooden crates. A shipment of grain is being measured beneath a shaded shelter. Sacks arrive from an estate upriver and are emptied into large containers. A scribe watches closely, recording each amount on a writing board. Beside him, an assistant checks seals impressed in clay. Grain is more than food. It can be tax, wage, rent, offering, reserve, and trade. It becomes bread and beer, sustains workers, supports temples, and fills state granaries for years when harvests are poor. To count grain is to count part of the kingdom's strength. The work produces a steady rhythm. A basket is lifted, grain pours, the measure is leveled, the scribe writes. Then the cycle begins again. Nearby, jars of wine and oil are marked with information about their origin and contents. Some come from Egyptian estates, others have travelled from lands across the sea or along desert routes. Cedar, silver, copper, incense, resins, oils, timber, and luxury goods pass through the river ports, though most people handle far more ordinary cargo: grain, pottery, reeds, stone, vegetables, and fish. A donkey train arrives from a nearby workshop. Each animal carries 2 baskets balanced across its back. The driver clicks his tongue and guides them toward a warehouse. One donkey stops beside a patch of shade and refuses to move. The driver speaks to it with the tired affection of someone continuing a familiar argument. A child brings cups of water to the workers. He dips them from a covered jar and passes them carefully. The day is warming, and even those accustomed to the climate drink whenever they can. You accept a cup. The water tastes faintly of clay and perhaps a trace of smoke from the jar's firing. It is not cold, but it refreshes you. Beyond the storage buildings, craftsmen repair a boat. One man heats a dark sealing substance used to protect the seams. Another fits a plank while a third holds it steady. Their mallets strike in alternating beats, not quite music, but close enough that your breathing begins to follow. The smell of the quay is layered: river water, mud, grain dust, fish, rope, animals, oil, and sun-warmed wood, no single scent remains dominant for long. A small shrine stands near the path into the city. Boatmen touch its edge or speak a brief prayer before departing. Travel on the Nile is familiar, but water always deserves respect. You leave the workers to their measured labor and walk inland. The temple walls rise ahead, though first you must pass through streets filled with shops and workshops. The morning is now fully awake and ancient Thebes is opening around you. Section 8. Workshops in the morning. The first workshop belongs to a potter. His yard is open to the sky, with reed screens providing shade along one side. Clay lies beneath damp cloths. Finished vessels stand in rows near the wall, while broken pieces have been gathered into a heap for reuse as tools, packing material, or rough paving. The potter sits before a low wheel. An assistant turns it steadily while the potter centers a lump of clay with wet hands. His fingers rise and the clay rises with them. In only a few moments, a simple jar appears where there was once only a shapeless mass. He narrows the neck, smooths the rim, and cuts the vessel free with a cord. The assistant places it beside others to dry. Nothing is hurried. Speed comes from repetition, from movements practiced so often that the hands no longer need instruction. Next door, a metal worker tends a charcoal fire. A young apprentice operates leather bellows, feeding air into the coals. The heat is already intense, and the workers shine with sweat. Copper and bronze tools lie on a bench: knives, chisels, needles, fish hooks, small axes, and fittings for furniture. Metal is valuable. A damaged tool is rarely discarded. It may be sharpened, straightened, reforged, or melted down. The sound of hammering rings through the street, bright and regular. Farther along, bead makers work with stone and faience. Tiny pieces of blue, green, red, and cream are sorted into shallow trays. One craftsman drills a hole through a bead using a bow drill. Another strings finished pieces into a necklace. The blue-green color of faience recalls water, vegetation, rebirth, and protection. Even small ornaments can carry meaning. You stop beside a painter grinding pigment. Black comes from carbon. White may come from gypsum. Red and yellow are drawn from earth. Blue can be made through a complex process that produces a brilliant artificial pigment. The painter crushes material on a stone pallet, adds a little binder, and tests the mixture with a reed brush. On a plastered board, he has sketched the outline of a seated figure. The head and legs are shown from the side, while the eye and shoulders face outward according to familiar artistic rules. These conventions are not failures to observe the world. They are a way of showing each part in its clearest and most complete form. A textile workshop occupies the next courtyard. Women and men sit at looms while flax thread passes steadily between their hands. The wooden frames creak. Shuttles move. A supervisor checks the width of a length of cloth and marks a tally. Fine linen catches the light like water. Coarser cloth is folded into practical stacks. Some will become clothing. Some will be exchanged as payment. Some will cover offerings, wrap household goods, or furnish beds. The street is now full of work sounds: wheel, hammer, drill, loom, conversation, and the scrape of sandals. Yet each workshop has its own pocket of concentration. You pass slowly, noticing hands more than faces. Hands shape clay, hold metal, twist fiber, grind color, and measure wood. They are dusty, stained, calloused, or wet. Through them, the city builds and repairs itself every day. At the end of the workshop street, A painted sign marks the entrance to a small market. Section 9. The Market of Thebes. The market is not contained within one permanent hall. It spreads along a shaded street and into a small open area between walls. Sellers arrange goods on mats, low stools, baskets, and wooden trays. Reed awnings soften the sun. There are no printed prices. Value is discussed, compared, remembered, and recorded when necessary. Grain, copper, cloth, oil, and other goods can serve as standards of exchange. Many transactions or forms of barter, though they are not careless or vague. People know what things are worth, and they negotiate with skill. A woman offers onions, garlic, lettuce, and bunches of herbs from her family's garden. Across from her, a fisherman displays fresh catch on damp reeds. Small fish glisten silver. Larger ones have been cleaned and laid beneath cloth to keep away flies. A baker has stacked round and conical loaves in baskets. Some are flavoured with dates or honey. Others are plain. A child stands beside the stall, holding a tiny loaf shaped like an animal and trying not to eat it before reaching home. You continue past jars of beer, dried dates, figs, carob pods, salt, beans, sesame, and oil. There are sandals woven from reeds, simple linen garments, wooden combs, baskets, ropes, and clay lamps. Nothing needs to be rare to be worth examining. Ordinary objects reveal how people move through a day. A perfume seller opens a small container and lets a customer smell its contents. The mixture may include oil infused with flowers, herbs, resin, or spices. Fragrance is used in personal care, ritual, medicine, and hospitality. In the heat, scented oils also protect and soften the skin. The customer considers the price and shakes her head. The seller adds a smaller jar to the offer. The customer smiles but still does not agree. Their conversation continues with great seriousness and no true hostility. At another mat, a farmer exchanges vegetables for a repaired sickle blade. A scribe writes a short agreement for two men discussing the delivery of cloth. Nearby, a barber works beneath an awning, shaving a client's head with a bronze razor while the client sits very still. You hear several languages and accents. Thebes draws soldiers, officials, traders, laborers, priests, craftspeople, and visitors from regions near and far. Egypt is connected to Nubia in the south, the Levant in the northeast, desert oases, Mediterranean ports, and routes crossing the Red Sea. A Nubian merchant displays polished wood, baskets, and small pieces of dark stone. His assistant speaks with an Egyptian customer using gestures when words fail. Both eventually laugh. The market is lively but not overwhelming. The awnings create stripes of sun and shade. Dust rises only where feet pass quickly. A breeze carries the smell of bread and herbs through the narrow space. You buy a small date cake wrapped in a leaf. It is dense and sweet, made from crushed dates and grain. You eat it slowly while standing beneath a tamarisk pole that supports an awning. Nearby, two elderly men discuss the height of the river as though no other subject could be more important. Perhaps today it is the most important subject. When the cake is finished, you follow the street toward the great temple precinct. Section 10. Before the temple pylons. The temple entrance does not appear all at once. First, you see the upper portions of the pylons rising above roofs and trees. Then the street broadens, and the walls begin to dominate everything around them. Finally, you enter an open approach where the full gateway stands before you, massive and sunlit. Two sloping towers frame the entrance. Tall flagpoles rise from their fronts, and coloured banners move slowly in the breeze. carved figures and lines of hieroglyphs cover the stone. From ground level, the images seem enormous. Gods, rulers, offerings, victories, and statements of order meant to endure. The temple is not merely a place where people gather for weekly worship in the way later cultures might imagine. It is the house of a god, an economic institution, a landholder, a storehouse, a workshop, and a center of administration. Priests and workers maintain its rituals and property. Farmers cultivate its fields, bakers make its bread. Brewers prepare its beer. Scribes record its goods. The sacred inner rooms are not open to everyone. Most people remain outside or enter only certain courts during festivals. Their connection to the divine may come through processions, household shrines, local chapels, spoken prayers, offerings, and the visible presence of the temple itself. You stand near a row of statues and watch the entrance. Priests pass through the gateway in clean linen. Some have shaved heads and bodies as part of their ritual purity. Assistants carry baskets of bread, jars of beer and wine, flowers, incense, vegetables, meat, cloth, and other offerings. These goods will be presented symbolically to the god and later redistributed among temple personnel. A faint scent of incense reaches you. It is resinous, dry, and slightly sweet. The smoke rises somewhere beyond the gateway, hidden by walls and columns. A family approaches a smaller shrine near the outer court. They carry flowers and a little food. The father speaks quietly. The mother touches the child's shoulder. Whatever they are asking is private. Health, protection, a safe birth, success in work, the return of someone traveling, or gratitude for a difficulty already past. Along one wall, petitioners seek answers through an oracle connected with the god's processional image. On festival days, a sacred bark may be carried from the temple by priests. The movement of the shrine can be interpreted as divine guidance. Today is ordinary and the great courts remain calm. You are allowed to enter the outer area with other visitors. The gateway casts a deep band of shade. As you cross it, the temperature drops. Your eyes adjust slowly. Beyond lies a courtyard surrounded by columns. Sunlight fills the open center while the covered edges remain cool. Every surface carries carving or paint. Reds, blues, greens, yellows, and blacks survive in protected places, far brighter than the bare stone imagined by future centuries. A priest pours water onto the paving stones as part of cleaning and purification. Another carries fresh flowers inward. You remain at the edge, where visitors are permitted, and listen to the quiet movement of a place designed to connect Earth with the ordered world of the gods. Section 11. Columns like a stone forest. A covered passage leads toward a hall of columns. You do not enter the most restricted chambers, but even the public view is enough to slow your steps. The columns rise like enormous bundles of papyrus. Some capitals are open like flowers. Others remain closed like buds. Their shafts are carved with hieroglyphs and figures, and traces of colour remain beneath the shelter of the roof. The hall feels like a stone version of the marsh where creation first emerged. Light enters through openings high above. It falls in pale shafts filled with dust and incense smoke. The lower parts of the hall remain cool and dim. Voices change here. Every footstep returns as an echo. You place your palm against one column. The stone is cool despite the warming day outside. Its carvings are shallow beneath your fingers. They were designed not only to decorate, but to preserve names, rituals, and relationships between ruler and god. image and writing work together. A figure offers wine, a god grants life, a cartouche encloses a royal name. Repeated across walls, these scenes maintain an ideal order even when the human world is uncertain. A group of trainee scribes sits in a side area copying signs onto flakes of limestone. Papyrus is valuable, so students often practice on broken pottery or stone pieces called ostraca. Their teacher speaks a phrase. The students repeat it and bend over their work. One boy has drawn a bird too large. The teacher taps the board beside it and demonstrates the correct proportions. The boy wipes the surface and tries again. Elsewhere, temple musicians prepare for a ritual. You hear the soft shake of a sistrum, a metal instrument associated especially with goddesses such as Hathor. The sound is bright but delicate. A harp string is tested and adjusted. The daily service performed deeper within the temple follows an ancient pattern. The god's image is awakened, purified, clothed, anointed, and presented with offerings. Doors are opened and sealed. Incense is burned. Words are spoken precisely. The ritual is not theatre for a crowd. It is maintenance of the bond between divine and human order. You do not see the image. You only sense activity through distant sound, a door, a chant, the ring of metal, the low murmur of a recitation. That distance makes the hall feel more peaceful, not less. You sit for a moment on a stone bench near the outer wall. The day outside is bright, but here the light remains soft. A pigeon has found its way into the upper beams and coos from somewhere unseen. The incense smoke drifts and thins. Your breathing slows. After a while, you rise and return toward the courtyard. The contrast of sunlight is strong at first. You shade your eyes and wait until the paving stones, columns and blue sky become clear again. A procession of workers crosses the far side, carrying baskets toward the temple kitchens. It is nearly midday, and the city is beginning to retreat from the heat. Section 12, the scribe's shaded room. Outside the temple precinct, a side building contains administrative rooms. One doorway stands open, and within it, several scribes work in the shade. The room is quiet compared with the market. Reed mats hang over the windows, allowing air to pass while reducing the glare. Low wooden tables hold rolls of papyrus, pallets, seal stones, cords, and clay labels. Shelves are crowded with jars and document bundles. A senior scribe sits cross-legged with a papyrus spread across his lap. His palette contains 2 small wells of pigment, black for most writing, red for headings, totals, warnings, names of dangerous beings, or points requiring attention. He moistens the end of a reed pen, shapes it with his teeth, and writes. The signs flow from right to left in this document, though Egyptian writing can face different directions. The animals and people within the signs look toward the beginning of the line, quietly showing the reader where to start. An assistant reads numbers from a wooden tally. The senior scribe records deliveries of grain, oil, linen, and incense. Each item belongs to a system of labor and obligation extending far beyond the room. A missing basket may require a note, a damaged seal may require witnesses, a worker absent from duty may be ill, attending a family matter, brewing beer, or simply refusing to come. Ancient records sometimes preserve these small truths with surprising honesty. At another table, a letter is being dictated. The sender begins with formal wishes for life, prosperity, and health, then quickly moves to his complaint. A shipment has not arrived. The recipient promised it many days ago. The sender has asked twice already. He hopes the gods are keeping the recipient well, but he would also like his wood delivered immediately. The young scribe suppresses a smile and continues writing. Learning to write requires years. A student copies model letters, wisdom texts, accounts, and lists. He memorizes signs and practices a professional hand. Scribes know that their skill can lift them above heavy labor, and instructional texts often praise the scribe's life while describing every other occupation as exhausting. The workers outside might not agree with the comparison. You are offered a broken piece of limestone and a reed pen. A clerk shows you how to hold it. He paints a simple water sign, a short line of waves, then a house sign, a rectangle with an opening. Your own attempt is uneven but recognizable enough to earn a polite nod. The wet black pigment shines briefly before drying matte. You place the ostracon on a shelf. It is unlikely to become important, but for a moment you have joined the enormous flow of marks through which Egypt remembers, counts, instructs, and speaks across distance. Outside, heat presses against the walls. The scribes continue working in their shaded room, while you step into the bright courtyard and search for a place to rest. Section 13. Rest at the hottest hour. Midday changes the city. The market grows quieter. Outdoor work slows where it can. Animals gather in shade. Even the birds reduce their calls. Sunlight falls almost straight down, shortening shadows and bleaching colour from the open streets. You follow a passage beneath a row of sycamore figs and enter a garden attached to a modest estate house. The owner permits travellers and workers to rest near an outer pool so long as they do not disturb the inner rooms. The garden is enclosed by a mud brick wall. Inside, the air feels immediately gentler. Date palms rise above pomegranate, fig, and acacia trees. Vines stretch over a trellis. Beds of herbs and flowers are arranged beside narrow channels that carry water from the pool. Blue lotus blossoms float near the surface, opening toward the sun. A gardener sits beneath a tree repairing a basket. His work continues, but slowly. He greets you with a lift of the hand and points toward a patch of shade. You lie back on a woven mat. The earth beneath it is firm and cool. Leaves move above you, making patterns of light that shift across the ground. Every few moments, a date palm frond clicks softly against another. From the pool comes the sound of insects touching the surface. A bee moves among flowers. Somewhere behind the wall, someone pours water from one jar into another. The household has paused for a meal. A servant brings bread, onions, cucumbers, cheese, and a dish of beans to workers resting nearby. The cheese is salty and soft. The bread is dipped into oil, flavored with herbs. Conversation is minimal. Everyone saves energy during the hottest hour. You are given a small portion and eat beneath the tree. Afterward, a cool, damp cloth is passed around. You press it briefly to your forehead and neck. The relief is simple and complete. Egyptian houses and daily schedules respond intelligently to heat. Thick walls, small openings, courtyards, roof spaces, shade screens, light linen, and early working hours all reduce discomfort. People cannot command the sun, but they know how to move around it. Your eyes begin to close. You do not need to sleep fully. You can drift at the edge of sleep, listening to the garden. A leaf falls. Water enters the pool through a narrow channel. The gardener's knife scrapes gently along a reed. A dove calls from the wall. Time becomes difficult to measure. Perhaps you rest for 10 minutes, perhaps much longer. No clock announces the difference. The day is marked by light, shadow, hunger, ritual, and the position of the sun. When you open your eyes again, the shadows have begun to lengthen. The worst heat is passing. The gardener has finished his basket and is checking the water channels. You sit up slowly. Beyond the wall, the city is waking for the second half of the day. Section 14. The House of a Physician. A short walk from the garden brings you to the home of a man known for treating injuries and illness. He is not a physician in the modern sense alone. Egyptian healing can combine careful observation, practical remedies, ritual words, amulets, diet, and appeals to divine protection. His front room smells of oil, herbs, linen, and dry papyrus. Shelves hold small jars labeled with painted signs. Baskets contain bandages, honey, resin, natron, seeds, leaves, and mineral powders. A bronze knife lies beside smooth wooden splints. On a table, a stone mortar holds a green paste. The physician is treating a worker who cut his hand in a workshop. The wound is not severe. It has been washed, and the physician examines whether the edges are clean. He applies a preparation containing honey and covers the hand with fresh linen. Honey is valued not only as food, but as part of wound treatment. Many Egyptian medical recipes are based on generations of observation, even when their explanations belong to a very different understanding of the body. The worker flexes his fingers carefully. The physician tells him to rest the hand and return if swelling worsens. Whether the worker will truly rest is uncertain. A mother waits with a child who has an upset stomach. The physician asks what the child ate, how long the discomfort has lasted, and whether there is fever. He mixes a mild drink and gives instructions about food and water. Before they leave, he ties a small protective amulet around the child's neck. To separate practical medicine from spiritual protection would seem unnecessary here. Both can belong to the same act of care. On one shelf lies a copied medical text. It organizes cases with phrases such as an ailment I will treat, an ailment I will contend with, or an ailment not to be treated. This willingness to recognize limits is as important as confidence. The physician notices your curiosity and shows you a bundle of dried willow leaves, castor oil, and jars of ground minerals. Some remedies may help, others may do little, a few might cause harm. Knowledge grows slowly through memory, experiment, error, and tradition. He also has a collection of cosmetic materials, black coal, green pigment, scented oils, and skin preparations. Eye paint is beautiful, but it may also reduce glare, repel insects, and carry protective meaning. Health and appearance are not entirely separate categories. A breeze moves through the doorway and stirs the hanging linen. The injured worker thanks the physician and leaves. The mother follows with her child, who is now distracted by a wooden cat near the threshold. The room becomes quiet again. You step outside into the afternoon. The sun has shifted westward toward the cliffs and the land of the dead. Before it reaches them, there is still time to visit the artisans, whose work gives the western bank its hidden color. Section 15. Across to the western bank. The afternoon ferry leaves from a quieter landing than the one you used in the morning. The sun is lower now and the water has changed color. What was bright blue and gold has become deeper, touched with green and copper. You board with several workers returning west. One carries brushes wrapped in linen. Another holds a basket of tools. A third has a small jar of pigment sealed with cloth. Their village lies beyond the cultivated strip, close to the cliffs where royal tombs are being cut and decorated. The boatman raises the sail. A northern breeze fills the cloth, and the boat turns gently south and west across the current. The sail creaks against the mast. Water moves along the hull with a low whisper. From the river, the division between east and west feels meaningful. On the eastern bank, the sun rises over temples, homes, workshops and fields associated with daily life. On the western bank, it sets toward desert cemeteries, mortuary temples, and cliffs holding tombs. The boundary is not absolute. People live and work on both sides, but the journey of the sun shapes how the landscape is imagined. You pass a cluster of papyrus reeds where birds settle for the evening. A fisherman draws in his final net. Near the bank, children splash in shallow water, while an older sister calls for them to come out. The western shore approaches. Here, green cultivation remains narrow. Gardens and fields follow the river, but beyond them the ground rises quickly into dry desert. The cliffs appear close, carved by light and shadow. Their colour shifts from beige to rose and pale gold. The workers step ashore and begin walking along a path between fields. You follow. A mortuary temple stands in the distance, its terraces and colonnades bright in the slanting sun. These temples maintain the cults of deceased rulers and connect royal memory with the gods. Priests, gardeners, bakers, storehouse workers, and scribes support their daily functions. Yet your destination is not a palace or monumental gateway. It is a village of craftsmen built behind walls in a dry valley. The people living there are specialists: stonecutters, plasterers, draftsmen, painters, scribes and labourers responsible for creating royal tombs. Their skills are highly valued, and their community leaves behind unusually detailed records of work, disputes, supplies, family life, jokes, absences and dreams. The path becomes steeper. Dust replaces damp earth beneath your sandals. The smell of the river fades, replaced by hot stone, dry herbs and sun-warmed plaster. A lizard darts across the path and disappears beneath a rock. You look back once. The Nile Valley lies below like a green ribbon. The eastern temples rise beyond the water. The sun, now behind you, gives every wall a warm edge. Ahead, the artisan's village waits in the quiet of late afternoon. Section 16. The Village of the Tomb Builders. The village is enclosed by a wall and organised along a narrow central street. Houses stand side by side, each built from mud brick and stone, each containing rooms arranged one behind another. From above, the settlement would appear compact and orderly. From within, it feels intimate. People know one another's families, habits, skills, arguments and debts. A workman returns through the gate and is greeted by a child who runs directly into his arms. Another man pauses outside a neighbour's doorway to discuss a borrowed tool. A woman pours grain into a basket while listening to news from the work crews. The workers follow a schedule divided into groups and supervised by foremen and scribes. They may spend several days at the royal tomb site before returning to the village. Supplies are issued as rations: grain for bread and beer, fish, vegetables, oil, cloth, and occasionally other goods. When supplies are delayed, the workers notice immediately. In another age, records would preserve moments when these artisans stopped work and demanded the rations owed to them. Even those creating monuments for kings must eat. You enter the home of a draftsman invited by one of the men from the ferry. The front room contains stools, baskets, a loom, jars, and a small household shrine. The walls are plastered. A stair leads to the roof. Behind the main room are sleeping spaces and a kitchen open enough for smoke to escape. The draftsman unwraps his tools. He shows you reed brushes of different thicknesses, a palette with red and black pigment, a measuring cord, and several pieces of limestone covered with sketches. One bears a careful study of a hand. Another shows a seated cat drawn with quick, confident lines. A third contains a humorous scene in which animals behave like people. Not every drawing is sacred or official. Artists practice, experiment, teach, and amuse one another. Ostraca preserved the informal side of Egyptian art: jokes, corrections, animals, dances, imagined scenes, and designs that never reached a tomb wall. The draftsman's daughter brings a small lamp and places it near the sketches. She watches while her father draws the outline of a bird. With a few strokes, the bird seems ready to turn its head. He gives her the brush. She adds 2 uncertain legs. No one criticizes them. Outside, a neighbor grinds grain. The steady stone-on-stone sound passes through the wall. Someone farther down the street is singing while preparing the evening meal. Smoke rises from roof openings and drifts toward the desert. You are offered water and a handful of roasted chickpeas. The family speaks about ordinary concerns. One roof needs repair. A cousin is expected to visit. A jar was broken. A foreman has promised new brushes. The youngest child has lost his sandal, though everyone suspects the household dog carried it away. The royal tombs nearby may be filled with visions of eternity, but the people who create them remain wonderfully anchored to the present. As the sun lowers, the draftsman suggests walking to the edge of the valley, where the light reaches the cliffs before disappearing. Section 17. Colors prepared for eternity. A path climbs from the village toward the work areas in the cliffs. You do not enter an active royal tomb, but a small shelter near the path contains materials used by painters and plasterers. The draftsman explains the sequence of their work. Stonecutters first shape chambers and corridors. Irregular surfaces are filled and smoothed. Plaster may be applied. Then draftsmen mark grids and sketch figures in red. Senior artists correct the lines in black. Carvers cut reliefs where required. Painters add color according to established conventions. Each stage depends on the last. On the low table lie pieces of pigment. There is red ochre from iron-rich earth, yellow ochre, white gypsum, black soot, green made from minerals. Blue produced through a remarkable artificial mixture heated and ground into pigment. These colors can remain vivid when sealed away from sunlight and weather. The artist crushes a little red pigment on a flat stone. The powder gathers in a bright patch. He adds water and a binder, then mixes it with a small brush. On a plaster fragment, he paints a line. It is the color of the western cliffs at sunset. Tomb decoration is meant to do more than please the eye. Images and words create an effective world. They provide food, movement, protection, knowledge, and identity for the deceased. A painted offering can continue symbolically. A written name preserves presence. Scenes of fields, boats, gods, and ceremonies help guide a safe transformation into the next life. To the artisans, precision matters because images possess purpose. Still, the atmosphere in the shelter is not solemn at every moment. One worker complains that a batch of plaster dried too quickly. Another says the problem was not the plaster, but the workers' slow hands. Their companions laugh. A water jar is passed around. The sun touches the highest cliff face. Lower paths have already entered shadow, but the upper stone glows with extraordinary warmth. Every crack and ledge becomes clear. You sit beside the shelter and watch the change. Below, the Nile Valley appears soft and green. Smoke rises from village roofs. On the far eastern bank, temple pylons and columns catch the last direct light. The draftsman cleans his brush and carefully covers the pigments. Nothing is left exposed to the night air. As you begin descending, you pass a small chapel cut into the rock. A worker has left flowers and a little bread before an image of a local deity. The offering is modest, perhaps made for protection at work or in gratitude for returning safely home. Your shadow stretches down the path. The heat stored in the stone begins to leave. A cool breeze rises from the valley. Day is moving toward evening, and the western bank becomes calm. Section 18. Sunset over the Nile. You reach the river as the sun nears the horizon. The ferry has not yet arrived, so you sit beneath a date palm beside the landing. The trunk is rough against your back. At your feet, damp mud holds the prints of birds, sandals and small hooves. Across the Nile, the eastern city is turning gold. The sun itself is behind the western cliffs, but its light still fills the sky. Red deepens into orange, then softens toward rose. The river gathers every colour and carries it north in broken reflections. People pause even when they have seen this all their lives. A boatman lowers his sail. Two women returning from fields balance baskets on their heads and stand, speaking quietly. A boy leads goats toward home. Their bells make small, uneven notes. To ancient Egyptians, sunset is not simply the end of daylight. The sun god enters the western horizon and begins a hidden journey through the night. He must pass through darkness and return renewed in the east. Every sunset contains the promise of dawn, just as death is imagined not only as an ending, but as a transformation. You do not need to hold the belief yourself to feel the reassurance within it. The solar disk reaches the line of the cliffs. For a moment it appears to rest there, then it disappears. The sky remains bright, but the land changes immediately. Details soften. The desert loses its glare. The green fields become darker and richer. Bats begin to move above the palms, turning sharply through the cooling air. The ferry arrives with its sail furled. You step aboard among families, workmen, baskets, and one patient goat. The boatman pushes away from shore. No one speaks loudly. The crossing belongs to the evening. A hymn is being sung from a distant temple, too far away for you to understand the words. The melody reaches the river in fragments. Oars enter and leave the water. The goat shifts its feet. A child falls asleep against his mother's shoulder. Halfway across, the first star appears, then another. The eastern bank comes closer. Lamps have been lit near quays and doorways. Their reflections tremble on the water, each one extending toward the boat in a long golden path. You step ashore as the sky becomes violet. The day's heat has lifted. Evening food scents drift from the houses: bread, onions, herbs, fish, and smoke. You follow them toward the neighborhood where your day began. Section 19. Supper in the courtyard. The family welcomes you back as though you have been expected all afternoon. The courtyard is lit by two small lamps. Their flames flicker whenever the evening breeze enters through the doorway. On the roof above, Linen and mats have already been arranged for sleeping later. Supper is simple and generous. There is bread, lentil stew, grilled fish, cucumbers, onions and a dish of greens. Dates and figs are placed in a small basket for the end of the meal. Beer is poured into clay cups. The youngest child receives a drink thinned with water. Everyone sits on low stools or mats. The father has returned from the storehouses. He speaks about a damaged seal on a grain jar and the argument that followed. The mother describes the price of oil in the market and insists the seller was testing her patience. An older relative has brought news from another part of the settlement. The children listen only until the fish is served. You break bread and use it to lift the stew. The lentils are soft, flavoured with coriander and a little salt. The fish is smoky at the edges and delicate within. After a day of walking, the meal feels especially satisfying. A cat moves through the courtyard with perfect confidence. It sits beside the person most likely to share fish and looks upward without blinking. Cats are valued for controlling mice and snakes around grain and homes. They can also be affectionate companions. This one appears to understand both roles and believes that service deserves immediate reward. A small piece of fish is placed near its paws. The cat accepts this as proper. After the meal, the family remains together while the air cools. One adult repairs a sandal strap, another combs a child's hair and checks for lice, an ordinary concern in every crowded settlement. The eldest child plays a board game with a neighbour using a small wooden set. The game resembles senet, in which pieces move across a grid. Chance and strategy both matter. In some contexts, the game also carries symbolic meaning connected with passage into the afterlife. Here, tonight, it mostly produces disagreement over whose turn it is. Someone begins a story. It concerns a clever servant, a stubborn official, and a crocodile that appears at the least convenient moment. The details change whenever the storyteller thinks the children are losing interest. They do not lose interest. You lean back against the wall and listen. The courtyard smells of lamp oil, cooling brick, cooked herbs, and the faint sweetness of dates. Above, the sky has become deep blue. The walls hold the last warmth of the day. When the story ends, the youngest child is already asleep on a folded cloth. The lamps are trimmed lower. Soon the household will prepare for the night. Section 20. Music. Beneath the stars. Before sleep, several neighbours gather on the roof. The day's work is finished. The air is gentle. A northern breeze moves between the houses and carries away the remaining heat. Roofs across the settlement hold families talking, mending, resting, and preparing beds. One neighbour brings a small harp. Its wooden frame is curved, and its strings have been adjusted carefully. Another carries a pair of clappers. A young woman holds a simple flute made from reed. No formal performance has been announced. The music begins because the night is pleasant and because people are still awake. The harp plays first. Its notes are soft and rounded. They do not travel far, but on the roof they seem to float. The flute enters with a melody that rises and falls like a bird over water. The clappers keep a quiet pattern beneath them. Egyptian music accompanies work, festivals, ritual, mourning, dancing, and private pleasure. Harps, lutes, lyres, flutes, drums, clappers, and sistra appear in paintings and survive in fragments. The exact melodies will be lost to time, but the human desire to make sound beautiful remains familiar. A few people sing. The song praises shade, cool water, flowers, and the presence of someone loved. Its images are simple. A garden is beautiful because one particular person walks within it. The river is refreshing because that person is near. You do not know every word, but you understand the feeling. The children who are still awake sit close to the musicians. One tries to copy the rhythm by tapping two sticks together. He begins too quickly, slows down, and finally finds the pattern. Beyond the rooftops, temple walls form dark silhouettes. The Nile is not visible from here, but you sense it through the coolness of the breeze and the calls of birds settling near the reeds. Stars multiply overhead. The bright sky of morning has become an immense black field. Some stars are used to organize time and ritual. Groups known as deacons help mark the hours of night and the calendar. Priests and observers learn when particular stars rise. Farmers and boatmen know the heavens in practical ways of their own. The music slows. One by one, the instruments fall silent. First the clappers, then the flute. The harp remains alone for a final phrase, each note separated by more space than the last. The musician rests his hand across the strings. No one applauds loudly. There are smiles, quiet thanks, and the comfortable silence that follows something shared. Families begin returning to their own roofs and rooms. The lamps below are being extinguished. Section 21. Preparing for sleep. The sleeping mats are spread across the roof in a row where the breeze can reach them. Woven reeds form the base. Folded linen and light blankets provide softness. Wooden headrests support the neck and keep the head raised above dust and insect. To someone from another time, the headrest may look uncomfortable, yet shape, habit, and personal preference matter. Some are simple, others are carved and decorated with protective images. Keeping the head elevated also allows air to move around the face during warm nights. A woman shakes each mat and checks the edges. The children wash their hands and feet with water poured into a basin. Dust from the day runs in pale streams across the floor. Their faces are wiped, a little scented oil is rubbed onto dry skin. The household shrine receives attention before the final lamp is put out. A small offering of bread is placed beside the figures of protective gods. Quiet words ask for safe sleep, good health, and the return of the sun. Night contains ordinary risks, insects, illness, bad dreams, fire, and uncertainty. Ritual gives the household a way to meet what cannot be fully controlled. Bess is especially close to sleep. His fierce appearance is meant to frighten away danger. Tawere protects mothers and children. Other amulets may show the eye of Horus, scarabs, knots, or small divine figures. One child wears a tiny amulet on a cord. He holds it for a moment while listening to a short bedtime story. The story tells of the sun god traveling beneath the world in his night boat. He passes through gates and hidden regions. Protective beings accompany him. At last, after danger and darkness, he is renewed and rises again in the east. The child has heard the story many times. That is why it works. Below, the cooking fire has been made safe. Jars are covered, the outer door is barred. Tools and baskets are placed where they will be found in the morning. The cat chooses a place beside the stair and turns in a circle before lying down. The oldest adult remains awake long enough to check the sky. The weather is clear. No sand-filled wind is approaching. The breeze should continue through the night. You lie on your mat. The woven surface presses gently through the linen beneath you. The air moves across your arms. From neighbouring roofs come fading voices, one last laugh, a cough, the scrape of a jar being moved. Someone lowers the lamp wick. The flame shrinks. For a moment, every nearby face is touched with gold. Then the flame is pinched out. Darkness settles over the roof, open and full of stars. Section 22. The river continues through the night. You have travelled through one day in ancient Egypt. You woke before sunrise on a mud brick roof. You shared bread and beer in a courtyard. You walked beside irrigation channels and crossed the Nile in a wooden boat. You watched potters, metalworkers, weavers, scribes, priests, physicians, traders, and artists move through their tasks. You rested beneath trees at midday. You crossed to the western bank, where tomb builders mixed colours meant to endure beyond a lifetime. You watched the sun disappear behind the cliffs and returned across a river filled with evening light. Now the day is complete. The roof beneath you still holds a little warmth, but the air grows cooler with each passing hour. The family lies nearby. Their breathing becomes slow and regular. The child with the amulet turns once beneath a linen cloth and then becomes still. Beyond the wall, a donkey shifts in its sleep. Palm leaves move above the lane. A nightbird calls from the direction of the river. The Nile continues flowing north beneath the stars. Boats are tied along its banks. Nets have been folded, storehouse doors are sealed, temple lamps burn in protected chambers. Somewhere, a night watchman walks a familiar route with a staff and a small light. The great monuments are present, but they are not the whole of Egypt. Egypt also lives in the texture of bread, the cool surface of a water jar, the sound of grain poured into a measure, the scratch of a reed pen, the shade of a fig tree, the hands of a potter, and the quiet conversation of a family after supper. Most people who live this day will not be named in royal histories, yet their work holds the world together. The farmer repairs the channel, the boatman reads the wind, the weaver tightens the thread, the scribe records the grain, the baker wakes before dawn, the child listens to an old story beneath a new arrangement of stars. You do not need to remember all of them. Let the images soften now. The market awnings fade, the temple columns become shadows, the river turns dark and smooth, the western cliffs disappear beneath the night sky. Only a few sounds remain, the breeze, the palm leaves, the distant water. Take a slow breath in and let it go. There is nowhere else you need to be. The sun will return when it is ready. The household will wake. Bread will be broken. Boats will cross the river. Another ordinary day will begin. But for now, ancient Egypt is sleeping, and you may sleep with it. Good night.